Since the dawn of civilization, human societies have set rules and norms that profoundly influence their cultures, traditions, and ways of life. Among these diverse practices, one of the most intriguing has been the restriction against consuming the meat of specific animals, particularly pork. This tradition, spanning thousands of years, is intricately tied to religious teachings, cultural values, and practical considerations, many of which remain a topic of fascination and debate to this day. In this exploration, we will unravel the historical, spiritual, and cultural dimensions of this prohibition. We'll uncover why it has endured across certain religions, been abandoned by others, and how it reflects the distinct needs and contexts of different societies. The perspective of Judaism. In Judaism, dietary laws hold profound spiritual and cultural significance. These laws, known as kashrut, are meticulously outlined in the Hebrew Bible. A key example is found in the book of Leviticus, where it states, "And the pig, though it has a divided hoof, does not chew the cud. It is unclean for you." While this directive might appear straightforward, it carries layered meanings that intertwine physical, cultural, and spiritual dimensions. From a practical standpoint, the prohibition of pork was particularly relevant to the desert-dwelling nomadic communities of ancient Israel. In an environment where water was scarce and refrigeration non-existent, pork was susceptible to contamination, posing significant health risks. Diseases such as trichinosis were a genuine threat, making the consumption of pork a potential hazard. However, limiting this dietary rule to a health rationale alone oversimplifies its deeper purpose. For the Israelites, obeying these dietary commands was an act of devotion and sanctification. Abstaining from specific foods like pork was a tangible expression of their dedication to God, symbolizing their identity as a chosen and distinct nation. This spiritual practice transcended mere physical health, serving as a means of fostering purity and a closer bond with the divine. The perspective of Islam. Centuries after the establishment of these Judaic laws, Islam adopted a similar prohibition. The Quran, the holy text of Muslims, emphasizes this restriction in multiple verses. One of the most prominent states, "Forbidden to you is the flesh of dead animals, blood, the meat of swine, and that which has been sacrificed in the name of anything other than Allah." In Islam, this rule is deeply intertwined with the faith's overarching principles of cleanliness and devotion. By abstaining from consuming pork, Muslims reaffirm their commitment to a lifestyle that aligns with spiritual discipline and moral obedience. Much like in Judaism, this dietary law serves to uphold not only physical well-being, but also a higher state of spiritual purity and reverence. The prohibition of pork is not merely a handed-down tradition, but is often regarded as a divine commandment in certain faiths. It embodies the essence of submission to God's will and the pursuit of purity in all facets of life. Much like Judaism, Islam also emphasizes the association of pigs with both physical and spiritual impurity, framing their consumption as an act contrary to the core principles of the faith. However, this rule is not solely spiritual. Practical concerns played a significant role as well. In the scorching climates of the Middle East, pork was especially prone to spoilage and the spread of disease. By prohibiting it, these religious guidelines seamlessly combined concerns for public health with the pursuit of a spiritually disciplined life, forming a system that was both coherent and purposeful. The Christian perspective, a shift in dietary philosophy. Christianity, despite its origins within the Judaic tradition, charted a markedly different course. As the faith expanded, its leaders re-evaluated dietary restrictions. In the New Testament, the apostles deliberated over these rules and eventually concluded that the dietary laws of the Old Testament were no longer binding on followers of Christ. This decision had profound implications. At its heart was the aspiration to make Christianity a universal faith, welcoming Gentiles, non-Jews, into the community without imposing the restrictions of Mosaic law. Early Christian leaders viewed Christ's message as transcendent, a spiritual guide that should not be confined by the customs of any particular group. Analyzing the broader implications. Examining these varied traditions, it becomes evident that the prohibition of pork represents more than religious observance. It is a reflection of societal challenges throughout history. These prohibitions addressed practical health concerns, while simultaneously reinforcing spiritual identity, serving as a cornerstone for the values and beliefs of the societies that upheld them. Yet, this raises profound questions. Were these rules merely born out of survival needs in hostile environments, or do they possess deeper meanings that transcend time and culture? Why have some traditions preserved these laws unchanged, while others chose to reinterpret or abandon them entirely? A timeless connection between the material and the spiritual. As we delve into the historical, cultural, and spiritual underpinnings of such dietary rules, we uncover a profound truth. The story of these prohibitions reflects humanity's timeless quest for meaning and connection. They reveal how individuals and communities seek to unite the material aspects of existence with higher spiritual purposes. Ultimately, the prohibition of pork is more than a rule. It is a lens through which we can explore the intricate interplay of faith, culture, and practicality, offering us valuable insights into the way humans strive to infuse their lives with meaning. Throughout history, societies and religions have created dietary practices that profoundly influence their cultural and spiritual identities. Among these practices, one stands out for its symbolism and complexity: the prohibition of pork consumption. This rule holds a special place in faiths like Judaism and Islam, yet it contrasts sharply with the dietary freedom seen in Christianity. Why do these differences exist? And what do they reveal about the core beliefs and values of each religion? Practical origins, rooted in environment. In the arid and hot climates of the Middle East, where both Islam and Judaism originated, pork consumption was viewed with suspicion. Pigs, often associated with unsanitary conditions, were deemed impure and unsuitable for consumption. Additionally, the extreme temperatures in these regions made pork highly prone to spoilage, leading to health risks such as trichinosis, a parasitic disease linked to undercooked pork. In environments with limited hygiene and preservation methods, these practical concerns provided an early rationale for avoiding pork. Transcending practicality, spiritual and cultural dimensions. However, the reasons behind this prohibition extend far beyond health concerns. In both Judaism and Islam, abstaining from pork is deeply intertwined with spiritual devotion and identity. It acts as a constant reminder of obedience to divine commandments, marking the boundary between the sacred and the profane, the pure and the impure. Judaism, a covenant with the divine. In Judaism, dietary laws, or kashrut, are more than a list of permitted and forbidden foods. They symbolize a covenant between God and the Jewish people. By observing these laws, Jews reinforce their identity as a chosen nation dedicated to upholding divine principles. Pork, classified as impure, is entirely excluded from the kosher diet. Beyond physical nourishment, eating kosher food serves as a spiritual practice, a daily act of discipline, reverence, and commitment to God's will. This tradition also underscores a rich spiritual heritage, connecting Jews to their faith and community through shared practices of purity and devotion. Islam, discipline, and unity through halal. In Islam, the dietary concept of halal defines what is permissible, and pork is unequivocally classified as haram, forbidden. This prohibition is absolute, symbolizing a believer's submission to Allah's commands. For Muslims, adhering to the halal diet embodies both physical and spiritual purity. Avoiding forbidden foods like pork is seen as a way to cleanse the body and soul, strengthening the connection to God. By following these dietary rules, Muslims also reaffirm their faith and foster a sense of unity and discipline within the global Islamic community. Christianity, a shift toward universality. Christianity diverges from these traditions with a distinct approach. With the advent of Jesus Christ and his teachings, many ceremonial laws of the Old Testament, including dietary restrictions, were reevaluated and reinterpreted. The New Testament presents a transformative shift in religious focus, emphasizing the universality of Christ's message. Early Christian leaders, such as the apostles, advocated for the inclusion of Gentiles, non-Jews, into the faith without imposing Old Testament dietary laws. This change was not merely practical but symbolic, reflecting the broader spiritual mission of Christianity to transcend specific cultural boundaries and embrace a global audience. Rather than focusing on external rules, Jesus introduced a profound spiritual shift, emphasizing inner transformation over ceremonial observance. In the Gospel of Mark, Jesus famously taught, "Nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them." This radical teaching marked a departure from traditional dietary laws, paving the way for a new understanding of purity, rooted not in external acts, but in the heart and intentions of individuals. This revolutionary idea was further reinforced through a vision experienced by the Apostle Peter, as described in the book of Acts. In this vision, God declared that no food should be considered impure. This moment was transformative, symbolizing not only the removal of dietary restrictions, but also the inclusivity of the Christian faith, which welcomed Gentiles, non-Jews, into its fold without the imposition of traditional Jewish laws. From that point onward, diet ceased to hold the same central role in Christianity, replaced instead by an emphasis on grace, faith, and spiritual transformation. Understanding the diversity in dietary practices. The differing approaches to dietary practices in Judaism, Islam, and Christianity reveal the unique beliefs and cultural contexts from which these faiths emerged. While some traditions use dietary laws to emphasize holiness and reinforce community bonds, others see food choices as matters of personal freedom, focusing instead on inner spirituality. This diversity invites thought-provoking questions. How have these practices shaped the religious identities of communities over centuries? What role do they play in how individuals connect with their faith and traditions? Most intriguingly, what can these traditions teach us about the relationship between physical acts and spiritual aspirations? Finding unity amid diversity. In our increasingly interconnected world, where cultures and religions coexist and interact, exploring these dietary traditions becomes more relevant than ever. They encourage us to move beyond differences and recognize the shared values at their core: obedience, spirituality, and the enduring human quest for meaning. So, what do you think about these dietary practices? How do they resonate with your understanding of spirituality and culture? Share your thoughts and join us on this journey of discovery and reflection.